redistricting, he talked about how, for example, we care about buses here in Nassau County, right?
Yes.
As we know, the county does not properly fund the buses, and as a result, buses will be cut very soon. Now, as legislators, we only have, on the Democratic side, about 7 votes. The other side, the remainder of 19 votes, overpowers our ability. In fact, does not even allow our legislation to be put on the agenda. And so with redistricting, they have districts where they have an advantage of like 5,000 more Republicans in those districts. So we cannot even overcome the problem of being a minority if these districts are not shaped correctly. Then we had the police commissioner who talked about the many strides and advancements in diversity that the department has made and the new programs that it's working to engage in a better communication with all the communities. Then we heard from Danielle Dauphin, Donovan, my apologies, who described economic empowerment in the black community as to how, for example, if the economy is not working for us, we have the need and the obligation to create our own economy. And Ms. Smith also talked about that as well. The importance of knowing how to navigate the MBWE world of classifying your business to receive certain advantages or contracts with your local government. We also have a representative here from the Controller's Office who you're welcome to speak to him about other MWBE issues. We all heard from Professor Marsha Darling initially. She gave a broad overview of the systemic and institutional racism here in Nassau County, and it is an issue of race, not just economics, and that we must confront that. And then, of course, we heard from Dr. Newland, who talked about the importance of social workers and how we as social workers not just working in our courts, but working in all facets of life. And the importance of listening to those clients and their needs and understanding that those concerns of our young people don't come out of anywhere, that they are based upon real everyday social realities. We heard from the Commissioner Eisenstein and Ms. Cummings about the many strides and advancements in the health department, and also, again, we had a very productive conversation. Now this is the portion where we have questions, and so I'm going to have these cards brought forward, and the first question we have is, as a young person in Nassau County, how can you help me with my education? That's a very good question. As a young person in Nassau County, how can you help me with my education? Can we have any of the panelists please help to answer that question? Yes, Ms. Smith, please come forward.
How young are we talking? Who wrote the question?
Young lady in the back.
Malia, how young? Okay. What I would like to say is that it is important to get involved, get information. Do not rely solely on information being fed to you. Be a critical thinker, be a researcher. Make sure that you're not relying totally on your, are they still called guidance counselors? Oh yeah, okay. Guidance counselor. Be an active participant because it's your education. That guidance counselor already has their education and degree and a job. And so you want to make sure that you are afforded the same opportunity to not just meet but exceed the potential that you have. Challenge yourself. So take advantage of internships and externships. I had spoken very briefly some time ago. I had put together a job shadowing program that took place here in Nassau County. And it was originally designed to expose our youngsters to various opportunities in government. Because so many times when you go to school, in high school, they ask you what you want to be, and they say lawyer and a doctor and maybe a social worker and some other things. But not many people are aware of the wonderful and expansive opportunities that are available in government. And so actually, Commissioner Crumter, his office played a big role, as did the District Attorney's Office, County Attorney's Office, sitting Supreme Court judges and sitting county court judges. And those students were allowed to have time over a course of 4 days to learn anything and everything that they could. They even got 3 students per judge. They got an hour and a half in the private chambers with the judge. I want you to know that's something that a lot of law students don't even get. And we coordinated this and we ran this for a number of years. And what I started to notice is that many of the guidance counselors were not passing the information on to the students in certain school districts. And even though this is an inclusive program, it is meant to uplift everyone, and we would get some who would participate, some who wouldn't, but more importantly, those who knew the value of that program. Not only did the students come, but the teachers were really glad to get there and kind of schmooze with the judges as well. So what I say to you as a young person trying to advance your education is to learn all you can, read, ask questions, ask for volunteer opportunities, do mentoring, do an internship. If it's paid or not, don't let that hold you back. Make sure that you get all the information that you can and be invested in your outcome.
Thank you. Mikhail Salages, the Assemblywoman, also would like to answer that question.
I just want to talk about the crux of education and educational funding, which greatly affects the African American communities. You know, our areas are usually an area of low wealth, high needs. And so we need a lot of state aid in order to have programs. And so right now, as state legislators, we are negotiating a $157 billion budget. That's a lot of shoes, right? A lot of money. And half of that is healthcare and education. And so that's a lot of educational dollars which needs to come down to our communities, because we cannot rely on property taxes. If you look at certain areas, property taxes is just non-existent. And so now is a time in which we're fighting for our educational dollars. And in the executive budget, there's actually a new change in educational funding, which takes away foundation aid, which is the aid that comes to our areas. And so it's very important that we advocate to our assembly people and our senators to request for restoring foundation aid and fighting for the campaign for fiscal equity. Last year we got rid of the GEA, which is a gap elimination adjustment. But now CFE, which really goes to our communities, is in jeopardy. And that's like $1.9 billion. That's not like, you know, a little bit of money. That's a lot. That's books, after school programs, that's teachers, Spanish programs, the list goes on. And so, you know, how can you better your education, which is the question? Really advocate on the state level for these issues. Make sure that you talk to your parents and tell them, hey, have you talked to your state legislators about more state aid for our communities so that we can afford programs, more after-school dollars, because I know the executive budget is proposing an increase in after-school programs. We need more of that in Long Island, Nassau County. I know a lot of my colleagues think of Nassau County as a polo. Oh, I have my 4 minutes of that? No. They think of Nassau County as, you know, ponies and like, you know, the Gold Coast. But Nassau County is a different type of community. And according to the last census, minority communities and, you know, immigrant communities actually increased the population here in Long Island. And so we're growing, and so we need to get our fair share.
Thank you. Part of the 3rd district includes Valley Stream. Valley Stream, according to the New York Times, has many African American families moving there. In fact, the families moving to Valley Stream have a higher income and education than the families they're replacing. So we have a county that's becoming more diverse, but as many of these sociologists show, and Professor Darling, if you agree, there's more diversity in the minority areas, but the whites are still remaining in the same areas as well. Another question along education, and I'll proceed, is what percentage of teachers in Nassau County are persons of color, and what is being done to address this issue? It's an important question. I have many professionals who work in my district and live in my district, and they look at the schools and they say, hey, look, you know, I don't see the teachers looking like the students in the school.
While I don't know the exact number or percentage of who are teachers, I am very familiar with the census data that predicts what is available. So what that kind of looks at is, if I had a vacancy for a particular position, how many people in a particular area are available to fill that particular position? I do know that even though teachers are the largest occupational profession in Nassau County, that for blacks in Nassau County, the availability percentage is only 5.8%.
Okay. Regarding housing discrimination, is anyone monitoring real estate agencies on their practices of steering their clients to and from neighborhoods based on race? I owned a co-op in East Rockaway for 9 years, and The only black person in the building that came to see was by my recommendation. What is being done regarding enforcing laws to prevent housing segregation? All right, legislative item. Thank you.
So, just a little background. They keep throwing me these housing questions, and that's because in my full-time capacity, I'm an executive director of a housing authority. So, in terms of, housing discrimination laws are alive and well on the books for, the federal government. So there is definitely, federal regulations that prohibit that. There are monitors that the federal government engage to go out into communities and do, the spot checking to ensure that, in fact, realtors are not steering. But Suffolk County has gone one step further, and they've put a local law on their books that actually deals with the discrimination. Unfortunately, when it comes to co-ops, there's a lot of work to be done. We have actually, our caucus has met with Randy Kaplan, who is with the Long Island Board of Realtors, and he has suggested some bills and some initiatives that Nassau County could undertake to ensure that when one is going before a board at a co-op, that they are considered based on their economic standing as opposed to their racial standings. So there's work to be done still in that aspect of things. I am interested in pursuing some of the legislation that Randy has suggested. Unfortunately, as Legislator Szilagyi has mentioned earlier, much of the legislation that we have put forward as the minority caucus, it never meets the floor. It never has an opportunity even to be heard on the floor, to be vetted to ensure that it meets the intent or that it is something that is even feasible. Is there a financial impact? There's not even a financial impact study done. It's really not vetted. So unfortunately, a lot of that legislation does not meet the time of day. I would suggest to you that as candidates come forward through this district or the district where you live, and they start talking with you about their candidacy, that you start asking those questions and ask them what would be their platform as far as discrimination and housing is concerned. Thank you.
Nassau County Police Commissioner Crumter, what are you doing to address the police brutality and forced arrest issues happening to black Americans in Nassau County?
I touched on that very briefly. One of the first things I did 3 years ago when I became the acting commissioner's report perf on board, we have revamped our use of force policies. Our policies are reflective of a model in this country. With that being said, we brought all of our police officers in to be trained on use of force, and we again did that last year. So our officers are routinely getting use of force training. Additionally, we actually now track and have statistical data for all use of force incidents, and to ensure that police officers are filling out the appropriate paperwork, we routinely audit that. We are underway right now of another major audit. So we've taken significant steps since we've changed the use of force policy about a little over 2 years ago. We have not had a single police-involved shooting in that 2-year period. One of the major changes that we implemented at that time was police officers are prohibited from shooting at cars where the only deadly force being used is the car, which has significantly reduced and diminished the number of police-involved shootings. Additionally, tasers, which we are finding to be a significant de-escalator of situations, have been rolled out. We've rolled out 1,300 tasers. And at the very core of our training now is de-escalation on use of force. So we've seen dramatic declines in use of force in the department. Additionally, we have formed an administrative inspections unit, and with a departmental order on January 1st, we have created a new early warning system. And what that's designed to do is to look at police officers that may be heading towards trouble and provide them resources and involvement with different social programs prior to them doing something that would be a violation of policy or law. So we look at the types of arrests they make. We look at the internal affairs complaints that may be unfounded and founded if they're involved in any litigation. So we look at them as a whole person using really a holistic approach. And before they actually get in trouble, we're pushing them towards services going forward. So we've taken a number of steps. You know, by any accounts, we are recognized in the use of force spectrum as a model. You know, myself, Chief Skrzynecki, who is retiring very shortly, Inspector Ron Walsh, Tatum Fox, Assistant Commissioner Fox, have lectured on a national level. Commissioner Fox just edited a white paper on use of force that was published by PERF. She was the editor of that paper. So we've really been way out in front, and what I want to point out is that these steps were all taken before Garner or Ferguson even occurred. We were well under our way to model policies, and we continue to massage those policies to assure for the safety and security of all of our residents.
Another question for the police commissioner: what is the percentage of Nassau County police officers of color compared to the census minorities in Nassau County?
Again, that's something we are significantly underrepresented. It's less than 5% with the African American population of 12%. The challenges we face there is a lot of the applicants of color are being skimmed off by the village police departments. And that is a problem that we have to address by having an overrepresentation on the exam. So for the first time ever, the last exam that we're currently working off had more than 12% African American representation on it. But what happens is the villages give preference, and to cite one example, the village of Hempstead gives a village preference. So they've exhausted every single village resident, and they have hired a significant number of African Americans that we didn't have the opportunity to hire in the police department. So we're going to the next exam recognizing that, and rather than just meeting the population, because we have to account for the villages, we're looking to oversample and you know, have a greater minority representation on the list. And we've achieved that with the Hispanic community, where they have about 10 to 12%, depending on what surveys and what census data you use. And we had over 15%, almost 16% Hispanic in the last exam. So we are moving in that direction.
Thank you. The next, would you like, is anyone else? Okay. What kind of support are available for minority startup companies?
Well, I can certainly speak to the what we do at the Long Island African American Chamber of Commerce, which is to provide training. So when, I'm assuming the question is for startup companies that are just looking to grow their business or is established, or in any event, if any startup or new business, we provide the training, and if we don't have the training in-house, and as far as we have, let me back up and say that we cover 4 regions. So our regions are Brooklyn, Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk County. And so we have MWBE trainers in each of those 4 regions that are responsible for providing training as it regards to growing one's business through becoming certified as a minority, minority women-owned business. So there would be double certifications in most cases, depending upon what minority group the business owner fits in. And so there is a certification process that involves providing documentation about your assets, which shouldn't be a problem if it's a startup company, number of employees, and all that information is covered in workshops that are provided depending upon which county or in which you live or where the business is located. As I stated when I spoke, to find out more information, just contact us. Shoot us an email. The email again is info@liaac.org, or you can visit our website. You can also find when our meetings are, when our general meetings, and attend come to us one of our meetings and ask questions about growing your business. We certainly are anxious, and we're advocates for helping our people grow their business. So we look forward to your questions and anxious to participate in helping your business grow.
Dr. Newland?
Can I just add to that, another resource here in Nassau County is the Nassau County Office of Minority Affairs, and I had the privilege to be able to work with them to establish my business as an MWBE, and those services are free of charge, and they may have, depending on if they receive certain grants, that they're able to offer it. So I was able to work with the Hofstra University School, their business school, to go through the process of being trained on how to get that documentation in order and to go through the certification process. And so, sometimes, it speaks about sometimes people perish for lack of knowledge. So we want to make sure that people know about how to access what they need to access for their benefits. So that's another resource as well.
Next question. The African American community is not monolithic. We are all not all poor. However, we often have these discussions, and that seems to be the focus. As a comment, any response?
Actually, the comment is very accurate. We are each diverse in our own way. Even if you have two people in the same room from the same racial group, there will still be some diversity. And I agree, and I touched upon very briefly, that unfortunately, much of the conversation surrounding diversity has been limited to just race and gender. But if I were to take a quick poll in this room and find out who was born maybe down south, or upstate, or on a farm, or rural, who's the middle child, or the oldest child, or maybe even the only child, who is born in a different particular generation, whether you are the millennial, whether you are a traditional, which was born before 1946. There's so much diversity that is not understood and not tapped into, and it all becomes important. Someone on the panel even touched upon the difference in New York City versus being here in the suburbs. That is a geographical diversity. It's diversity. It's not all limited to race and gender. So you have to look at, when we provide the services, we have to look at the totality of what is being put forth so that we can begin to meet those needs and not just feel that we all fit in one little particular box.